Oklahoma State interim head coach Doug Meacham confirms that converted slot receiver Sam Jackson V will play quarterback once again this weekend for homecoming against Cincinnati. And I don't know about you, but I think we saw enough out of the dude who will now be QB2.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All-Deo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Head on over to Game Time Tickets today. We get to slide right into this quarterback conversation, and as Doug Meacham talked about in his most recent press conference, Sam Jackson V, the former TCU and Cal quarterback, converted to a wide receiver by Auburn that came to Oklahoma State as a slot receiver and the primary return guy, is getting another opportunity to be QB1 this week against Cincinnati. And by and large, I'm okay with it. When you look at the offensive wrinkles that we were able to add for Baylor, and then you saw some of those kind of come together against Houston in the first quarter, that showed at least enough signs of life from this offense to be able to put up a fight. Sam Jackson does clearly have the ability to stretch the defense and to get numerical advantages just because of his athleticism, his ability to break contain, and get the comeback routes for the wide receivers when he is outside the tackle box. I think all of that is very beneficial to Oklahoma State. Even if you're going with the RPO kind of action thing, that is his bread and butter, that is his forte. He's obviously adequate enough in the passing department to be able to get Oklahoma State down the field. Now, we did see in this previous ball game in the second and third quarters primarily that when Houston was able to make defensive adjustments and Sam Jackson just had to go predicated upon reads and off of the script, that's when things did change a little bit for him. But as Doug Meacham mentioned in this press conference, sometimes, especially at the quarterback position, you don't necessarily know how to fix something until you physically see yourself on the field doing it. It's one thing to talk about it in film. It's one thing to know what the quarterback is physically supposed to be doing. It is another thing to visualize why my coach wanted me to do X, Y, or Z. In the game, sometimes you're just doing it off of muscle memory. But once you see how categorically the coach is accurate and you can do something now that you physically felt doing it the wrong way or going through the wrong hole or looking at the wrong backside blocker. So I think whenever Sam now has the cerebral ability to physically put it into context, we should see an improved version. Unfortunately, we are also seeing a much improved version of the Cincinnati Bearcats. So what looked like a likely win before the season on homecoming now looks like a difficult task. I do like the idea of Sam Jackson having more time, having more physical attributes to look at on film now to make it more applicable to what they're trying to do within the offense. So we should see more creativity. But obviously, as Houston proved in the second and third quarters, that outside of the creativity, you also still have to be able to run the normal offense. That was the problem for Oklahoma State against Houston, was outside of the scripting in the first quarter, it got pretty difficult for Sam Jackson to run the entire offense. Secondarily, we didn't get to see a lot of Noah Walters, but Noah Walters does come in and immediately hits Gavin Freeman, and G Freaky does exactly that. He gets a little bit freaky, makes a few moves, gets himself a house call. So Noah Walters gets in the ball game, and a couple passes later, he's already got a touchdown, which is something, unfortunately, we did not get all season as of yet from Zane Flores. I know Haas Haney is bouncing around once again at practice. He's still in a boot, so that could be, a time frame issue. Zane Flores' injury was always going to be somewhat minor from what we have had gathered thus far. So Zane might even be back in the next couple of weeks. With that being said, if Sam Jackson has some of the same struggles that we did see against Houston, or even to some degree Baylor, a.k.a. after the scripting, after the eye candy, after the added layers of packaging is kind of filtered through, then the defense starts to be able to make adjustments. That is when Sam Jackson had some issues. So is the coaching staff going to be able to get more out of him? Because again, Noah Walters comes in, and very small sample size, of course, but he runs a couple plays and he's immediately throwing a touchdown. So now we've got Sam Jackson throwing touchdowns. We got Trent Hallen throwing dimes down to the 1 yard line. We got Shamar Rigby throwing touchdowns. And now you can add Noah Walters to that equation. Haas Haney obviously was able to get a couple touchdowns before his injury. The only person off of that list is Zane. I feel bad for Zane Flores, to be 100% realistic with you, because it's not 100% on him. The coaching staff decided that the upside of Zane Flores was better than keeping Garrett Rengel or Malawake Smith. And then Zane was obviously put into this position of coming in and running the Haas Haney offense. And then he doesn't have confidence because of the picks against Oregon. And you're seeing it visibly on the field. Sam Jackson did seem to bring a little different layer to the offense. Just like we talked about last year when Rengel went in the game, it was very visible that the sideline was different. The players on the field reacted different. They played more inspired. They played harder. They held on the blocks a little bit longer. You definitely see some of that with Sam Jackson. And the other thing that is very intriguing about Noah Walters, which we haven't seen a lot of this year, is he hit Gavin in stride. I know it was a pretty short to intermediate pass, and I know it was just a crosser route, right? But he hit him in stride to where Gavin Freeman could make some moves and get himself a house call all the way to the end zone. We can say whatever we want about Haas Haney and the prospect of him potentially coming back. Yes, it would be very, very exciting. In a business setting, it would be a little confusing, to say the least. Like, we're competing for the rest of the season to get a win, maybe two. So I don't know that it's a good business move for Haas Haney to come back in this situation. So what are we going to get out of this offense? If it struggles, I think we should move to Noah Walters. If Sam Jackson goes through the same things he went against Baylor and Houston, which is the scripting was good, the fourth quarter was good, going into the second quarter was good, giving yourself a fighting chance at halftime, all good things, but the adjustments from the defenses in those particular ball games ended up being problematic for Oklahoma State. So how much does Sam Jackson learn in this short amount of time? And if he does struggle past the scripting, are we going to be prepared to put Noah Walters in the game? Because, I mean, we saw enough from Sam Jackson against Baylor. We saw enough from him, especially in the Arizona game, that we're pretty excited to see what it could look like against Houston. And then naturally we get that first quarter where Oklahoma State has their first lead since the BYU Rangel game last season. That's the last time we had a Big 12 lead. And I know we're grasping for straws and we're looking for little bitty consolation prizes, but I mean, you got to take what you can get. And that first quarter was the first quarter of football this season that was actually kind of fun, other than the Baylor game. So we've had a couple first half offensive performances that at least get us excited about what the prospect of the future could be. I just think that if Sam Jackson runs into the same kind of hurdles that he did against Houston, we need to see more of Noah Walters, because we saw enough of Sam against Baylor. We saw enough of Sam against Arizona to get us excited about what it could look like against Arizona. We saw the same thing from Noah Walters. Obviously, it's an even smaller sample size, but Sam Jackson gave us some hope. I think Noah Walters hitting Gavin Freeman in stride does the exact same thing. Are we going to go topple the world? No, we're not. But I think the combination of Sam Jackson and Noah Walters is good enough to, again, make some things at least interesting. Speaking of being interesting, Wayfair is here for the holiday season, and you need to be more excited than ever, because getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a ton of pressure. Maybe your serveware needs a refresher, or your guest room could use some new bedding. Wayfair has everything that you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every single room in and outside of the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection of every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of the huge delivery fees. You're going to love how easy it is to find the pieces that fit your style and your budget all in one place. Easy checkout makes it a breeze. The delivery is fast and free, which is a lifesaver during the busiest times of the year. Now, instead of stressing about getting your house ready, you can actually enjoy the holidays with friends and family. They also have great gifting ideas for your friends and family as well. So get organized, get refreshed, and be ready for the holidays for way, way less. Head on over to wayfair.com right now to shop on all things for your home. That is Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Go to Wayfair today, where they have every single style for every single home. The bee's knees for all of your betting needs is back, and the NFL season is giving us something to be excited about. Appreciate you, Zach Robinson. And FanDuel has an offer that you're not going to want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if you're a winner. It's simple. You pick the bet. You put down your $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. It makes watching football much more exciting because of your investment level. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better for you because you're invested. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to download the FanDuel app and get started. Head on over to FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app, play that $5 holler, and if it's a winner, you'll get 300 bones back in bonus bets. Right now, we get to slide into the personnel packages. So we had discussed how we started the season with like 7 tight ends, and then we got down to like 1 or 2 tight ends, and you're having some defensive guys play 60, 70 snaps at that position on the scout team. And then in the game, we did get to see a little bit of a different wrinkle. So shout out to Oklahoma State and being able to kind of make some of these things work from a packaging perspective. Like, we know we're banged up. We know we're having some difficulties right now, getting enough tight ends to help the offensive linemen open holes. So I'm happy that they're addressing it, because unfortunately, when Mike Gundy was running things, there was clearly some areas that we needed to address. And for whatever reason, we just refused to do so. It's like we were burying our head in the sand and pretending that some things weren't the way they were. But as we discussed last week, you've got guys like Damian Bradley with some tight end experience, Malik Charles with some tight end experience. You've also got Gunnar Wilson with some tight end experience. And in this ball game, we did get to see Grayson Brousseau, the 6'5", 240-pound Utah State product. It was nice. I think he played pretty well. He was okay in the blocking game. He was able to get his hands on a couple of footballs and get a pass his way. We still haven't, seen Oscar Hammond or if his injury is going to be okay. We know the situation with Josh Ford. It was great seeing Quentin Stewart back out there. Not sure what we're going to get, if we're going to get anything out of Jordan Viborni or Carson Suesu this season. But it was nice to see Quentin Stewart, the fifth-year senior, continuing to get opportunities and be the quintessential Cowboy culture kind of guy. And then Grayson Brousseau get some opportunities and was able to actually do something with it. So does this mean we're going to get different personnel packages? Was even Robert Allen mentioned in the press conference with Doug Meacham. We're going to some 20 personnel, even 21 personnel packages where you have multiple tight ends, so like an A set with nobody in the backfield or one running back in the backfield. And if we were going to see more of those looks, listen, I think it's absolutely imperative that we do everything that we can to at least help with the offensive linemen. It's not a bad thing to just admit that they're having a little bit of an issue here and there, and it would be advantageous for us to slide in and help where we can. And that's why I'm excited. And that's why I thought it was pretty cool to see Gage Staniland get some opportunities in there. Again, we're talking about guys that bleed for Oklahoma State. They bleed orange. They love the process. They love everything that they're going through. Even if there's some trials and tribulations along the way, which certainly this season has presented a lot of those, You're still going to have a decent number of dudes that want to be part of the next iteration of Cowboy football. Because of the history over the last 20 years, there is an expectation. So a lot of these dudes, or at least a decent number of these dudes, like your Gage Stanalans, they likely would like to be a part of what we have moving forward. And are we going to see more of that? Doug Meacham didn't really tip the hand to say one way or the other per se, but, he talked about when you have a minor injury here and there, it complicates things. So sometimes you have to do some creative things like bring in an offensive lineman to be a pseudo tight end kind of guy. When you're this depleted at the tight end position, it makes a perfect amount of sense. I personally, from an athletic perspective, would like to see some of these defensive dudes that are doing some of the scout team stuff get in the actual game on the offensive end as a tight end. I think that would be pretty cool. But it's exciting to see the guys like Gage Stanalan and Landon Dean get these opportunities and make the most of them. Palasa Utu's in there. Ike Essenwoon's in there. Gunnar Wilson's in there. LaDainian Fields is definitely in there. I mean, I would love to see more Trent Hallen toting the rock, but as we discussed in the spring, there was some fumble issues. And for whatever reason, those have lingered over into the season now for Trent Hallen. Are we going to see more unique packages? Probably. One thing that we haven't necessarily seen is like that old school diamond formation. I'm waiting for it. I can't wait to see it. And with the creativity alongside of it, if you were to put a Sam Jackson V in the backfield with Noah Walters and a Rodney Fields or even a Trent Hallen, who people have to now respect his throwing abilities, or Shamar Rigby, there's so many things that we could do creativity-wise still with the backfield, regardless of the personnel packaging. Right? I even think that you could go 23 personnel essentially. I think you've got enough dudes with the tight end position and on the defensive side of the ball that just want to play and they just want to be part of whatever Oklahoma State football is going to be doing in the future. So I'm so happy that Clint Bowen and Doug Meacham are not only reaching into their bag of tricks, but they're reaching into their bag of setting the expectations. So the guys that are doing more in practices and workouts and film and staying late and doing things the right way, those are the guys getting the bulk of the playing time now. And you're seeing a better product. Are we still getting beat? Yes. But I think that you could at least argue that if you put the football team that's played against Baylor and Houston on the field against Tulsa, probably a different story. Oklahoma State probably has enough athletically to get an occasional numerical advantage, to offensively put enough points on the board to beat Tulsa. So we have to see the improvements. We have to recognize that they're at least somewhat exciting. And I like the idea of the new packages. Give us some more big dudes, even if it's Gage Stanalan, all right, instead of like, a dude that played tight end in high school. Give them more opportunities. Because visibly, it makes a difference. Visibly, we're not watching guys quit running in the middle of the plays anymore. That's encouraging. I love seeing Palasa Utu and Ike Essenwoon and LaDainian Fields and Eric Lester Fletcher fly around the field because they're just happy to be out there getting the opportunities because they've put in as much work, if not more work, than the guys who started the season getting all the playing time. I love it. So give us more packages. Speaking of packages, you have to make sure that you get your tickets all nice in a college football package. The tailgates, the rivalries, the Kappa tailgate that you need to come swing by this weekend, that adds the energy. So much so that if you're in section 231 and you're ready to take your shirt off and spin it around your head like a helicopter, Game Time can help you get there. The endless queues, the hidden fees, the prices jumping at checkout with other places, it's unnecessary. That's why you got to use Game Time. The app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you'll pay. You're going to love the zone deals, too, because you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats, and you get the big savings. It is faster, cheaper, and way less stressful than any other thing on the market to buy tickets. So if you don't win the ticket giveaway that I'm doing and announcing on the show this weekend. Make sure that you get your tickets right now with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of you buying college football tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create that account, redeem that code, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. It's simple. You swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Download Game Time tickets today. All right, before we do get on off of here, once again, the NCAA strikes, and it hits Oklahoma State. There is a new rule that was just put out in the last few days in regards to the transfer portal. So what it has been for Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, UCLA, and several other schools in the same category that fired their coaches pretty early, they got a 30-day portal window, which, by the way, closes in a handful of days. But now the new rule is there's like an extended window after they hire the new coach. So when the first coach gets fired, that 30-day window for everybody to hit the portal, that no longer is going to exist. So now, for Penn State, for example, they don't have a 30-day window right now. But Oklahoma State players did, Virginia Tech players did, UCLA players did. But Penn State, they don't have that. That's not an obstacle anymore. The new transfer portal window for them will begin once the new head coach is hired. It doesn't seem like, I could be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, I haven't heard otherwise, but it doesn't appear as though the Oklahoma States, Virginia Techs, and UCLAs of the world are going to be grandfathered into this new rule. I mean, they should be. It would make the most amount of sense, but it doesn't negate the fact that you've already had some David Kabongos and Cam Epps enter the transfer portal, the Josh Fords. So if this new rule was in existence, then we would probably not have any of those guys entering the transfer portal. But now what do you do? Like, if you've entered the portal and you've accepted that you want to leave Oklahoma State, and you want to leave your brotherhood, or you want to leave the locker room and you want to go explore elsewhere, isn't it almost impossible at this point in time to put the toothpaste back in the tube? It's absolutely ridiculous that the NCAA, maybe it's probably just coincidental. I get that. But it's hard to find it coincidental when Oklahoma State, UCLA, Virginia Tech went through this same scenario where they had a handful of dudes, sometimes double handfuls of dudes, either decommit or enter the transfer portal. Well, this has nothing to do with the commitment side, but it has a lot to do with the portal side. Because if Josh Ford or Cameron Epps or David Kabongo, if those dudes were told, hey, by the way, your portal window doesn't begin until we hire the next guy, would they still be playing on the sidelines at Oklahoma State at this very moment? Yeah, probably flippingly, but they're not. And I don't know that they can be. And even if they could be, I'm not 100% sure what example that sets to the players like the Puasa Utus, who are finally just now getting some playing time, and they're getting the recognition that goes alongside whenever you play with your hair on fire and you play with a ton of effort, what that could potentially do for your future. We're seeing those players benefit from that right now. And even we just talked about Gage Stanland. If Josh Ford was still here, then Gage Stanland doesn't get that opportunity. So hopefully Gage Stanland can turn that opportunity he just got against Houston into now more opportunities throughout the rest of the season. But let's not pretend that it would be really nice if we didn't have to worry about those guys no longer being here. And here's the deal, right? Cale Davis is seemingly the biggest liability in the back end of the defense, but we can't say the same thing about Dylan Smith. Dylan Smith has been performing for the most part. He's made some big-time plays in his Oklahoma State career. And yes, we may know that most of these dudes, or at least a couple of these dudes, would have preferred to redshirt and stay, but then they were informed, no, we can't do that, which I kind of understand, but I don't necessarily agree with it. Like, that's one of those things I think you can be kind of selective about. So it stinks that there's a few schools like us and UCLA and Vautech that are in this position. We've already had several players enter the transfer portal because they had this window. And now there's only probably 8 or 10-ish days left in the Oklahoma State original portal window from when Mike Gundy got fired. So the question now is, do those guys still only have 8 to 10-ish days left to make a decision? Or now that there's this new rule, do they get that extension? Right? There's some things that just don't make sense. They don't necessarily add up. I know the NCAA has gotten very used to lawsuits. They're probably prepared for them. But it almost feels like this is an applicable situation where if all of Penn State's dudes get to hang around and keep playing until they name a new coach, then why couldn't Oklahoma State, UCLA, Vautech, whomever else, why couldn't they get those players back and it not count negatively against them? And that may be something that is happening. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any retroactive statements by the NCAA that we're going to cover this for the players that already entered that 30-day mandatory window, because that changes things. If you're one of those guys that is deliberating at the moment and now you get this news, if it's applicable to the current situation, then you get to stay. You get to put on more film, and then you have to worry about the portal whenever Oklahoma State hires the new coach. That is the best scenario for everybody. But again, I don't know if you can put the toothpaste back in the tube, even if the NCAA would allow it. Like, how do you go back to those guys and be like, hey, we told you, sorry, either you're in the program or you want to get the flip out. And if you want out, we want you out now. Sorry about that. Actually, now that the NCAA has made this new rule, you can come back. Even though we told you to kick rocks, I don't know. That's probably what we should do. Having a David Kabongo or a Josh Ford and you know what? The deal with Dylan Smith is I don't know that it would be a necessity because Mordecai McDaniel is playing very, very well. Kenneth Harris Jr. is getting more opportunities and taking advantage of them. Parker Robertson is kind of like the primary mainstay, loyal and true dude. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any retroactive things put out about this. That would be the right thing to do by the NCAA. But we all know that the NCAA and Oklahoma State don't exactly have a warm and fuzzy, cozy relationship. So part of me thinks that Oklahoma State, UCLA, and Virginia Tech are going to get screwed. And the guys that were already in that 30-day window have to stay in that window. I hope not. But I haven't seen much yet that says that they're going to retroactively correct what they have done, because that changes the game completely. If you do not have to worry about entering the portal until your university hires a new coach, then it takes away a lot of the stress. It takes away a lot of the necessity to have the quote-unquote third-party people go find you other opportunities in the meantime. I mean, some of that can still happen. It's going to happen, and that's fine. But why not let it happen if you're still on the roster, if you're still in practice and you're still in workouts and you're still getting to put on some game film and make those adjustments? Like Doug Meacham talked about with Sam Jackson, now that he's physically, visibly been able to see on film what he did do versus what he was supposed to do, maybe it does make a difference. It should make a corrective difference on the football field. This would make a huge difference for most of the schools going through this scenario. If you have guys in that 30-day window, do they only have X amount of days left? It doesn't sound right. It doesn't even sound like that's something the NCAA could get away with. But let me know down in the comment section if you've heard that the NCAA is in fact going to go back and allow this original 30-day window to go away. And are they going to allow the Josh Fords of the world to come back? I'm not saying it should happen, but I'm curious if it even could happen. All righty, y'all. So we're going to have this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. Hit the like button, dislike it. If you didn't like it, that's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast, people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Later, taters.